Hey, Kevin, you made it in?
Yeah, I made it.
Yeah, you're the first. Sorry, it's a little delayed getting in here. Are you hearing me?
I don't know what happened.
Yeah,
Oh, here
you're
we
real
go.
quiet.
Yeah. Oh, here we go. Here we
That
go.
might help.
So I was taking a look at some of the,
Technical things.
I didn't have a lot of time to look at it, but just a beginner's guide. Now, do you have to have like an SDK? Should I go on and register to get an SDK they were talking about for iOS development or something? Do I need that?
Not unless you're planning to push something out to a tablet, and you can actually, um, it's specific to the iPad and the iPhone,
Right.
but you can actually run a simulator if you have Xcode installed.
Okay.
But
I
we're
don't
we're
know.
we're more
Sorry, go
focused
ahead.
on building something that'll run as an application on a desktop rather than iOS specific.
Okay. I just want to keep it simple. I don't want to be putting more stuff out there
Right.
yet that if I don't really need it.
So,
So
yeah, I would
I'm
say
just
no.
reading what they were saying on the live code
Yeah.
for installation. So I'm not going to bother with that.
Nope,
So
I don't think you need to. I part of the challenge, we sort of discussed this with some of the other live coders, is the documentation that live code puts out. Um, they tend to focus on one thing and then cycle through another 6 month or year development cycle and focus elsewhere. And there's not really a lot of cohesiveness to it. So one of the challenges is their promise of a single code base to do everything is a promise, but if you're actually publishing for iOS, there's a lot of exceptions that you have to code for to put something out on iOS. So it's
okay.
really specialized still. And we as a team are really just focused on what can we build for an application for desktop use, and then how can we share that code, and then if someone wants to get out there and make it into a iOS or Android tablet app, they can do that, but it's not that's not a prime goal for us, for everybody on the team. I just put it that way, I guess.
Yeah, my goal is just to learn it or get the basics down
Yeah,
and be able to
yeah,
create something.
yeah.
If I could do that, I'd be pretty happy.
I would not call publishing to iOS basic
No, no, I don't think so.
at all.
I was
And
thinking, I don't think so. So I better just ask about this
yeah,
because I didn't want to get into that.
I've experimented with it, and when I showed people what my results were, um, it was a challenge because I was, again, working on the premise that what LiveCode had written on their site was write once, publish anywhere, and the truth is you really had to get into that iOS specific code, um, even back then, and now I think it's much more of a requirement. So yeah, I don't need to focus this there, but so you were able to get LiveCode up and running, and
Well, I haven't gotten it up and running yet. I was
okay.
just reading,
Oh
so
yeah,
I understood the terms like the stacks and the cards and the the whole system of tools. So when I'm looking at the screen that you're showing,
yeah.
at least I have an understanding where we're going with it.
Well, I think the other thing to realize is, as a team, we have a number of people with a number of different backgrounds, and you don't have to be a live code specialist to contribute and to work well on the team. Obviously, there's going to be a need to do that if you want to move forward with the code on
Right.
your own, but there's time for that. Our time commitment is within the cohort. We're trying to get a couple projects out as examples,
Using
and
xAPI, right?
yeah, and focus in on how do we send xAPI statements with them, and that's sort of um, where we want to be. And I think the other thing we talked about, or I published in the emails today and yesterday, was we want to look at a higher level agenda. We're sort of getting, I guess I would call it negative feedback. We're not getting actual feedback, but we're getting the feeling that we were overwhelming some of the new xAPI cohort members by diving into LiveCode the way we did. So this meeting is probably going to be a lot more high level and talk about the project and the team rather than focus in on what the coding requirements are. So hopefully we'll get a couple other people, but I'm happy to chat along and answer questions as we go here.
Yeah, well, I just thought LiveCode, you know, like I want it. If I'm doing xAPI, I thought, well, I looked a little bit into it and I thought, well, this would be great because it's like kind of two birds with one stone. You know, you're like you're learning them both.
Yeah.
To a point. So it's exciting. I think LiveCode's pretty exciting as well as xAPI. But I never knew all the things you could do with LiveCode until reading about it. So.
Well, that's sort of my interest in it as well. I've been a fan for over a decade and sort of followed along through their funding campaigns and purchased licenses and tried it out. And actually, like I hinted at, I tried it out on a paid project with one vendor, and the challenge we had was the documentation said you can use RevSpeak to actually read what is on the screen, and that is something the vendor or the customer literally wanted, was to have a iOS app that would read text on the screen. Okay. And this was probably version 6. Hi, Peter. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you.
And we're just sort of talking through. I got talking about one of my previous LiveCode projects. So I had a vendor that wanted to build an app that could be used on a tablet within a hospital environment, for somebody that had been intubated and temporarily couldn't speak, was the premise. And so somebody could walk in with a tablet with some common phrases, and they could actually tap a few buttons and build sentences. And it was a limited vocabulary thing, but the idea was, you know, instead of passing the tablet back and forth, you actually would build a phrase and then have the tablet read it out as speech. So I jumped in and built this as a prototype and actually got Xcode working with LiveCode and published it to my tablet. And then when I got to the point where I'm testing RevSpeak, it would not read any of the words. So I got wrapped around the axle. How do I get this to work if it's not working? Not realizing that it had not been implemented on iOS at that point in time. And I had already, worked with the customer and told them this was possible, and was in the challenge of how do I make it work, because I was absolutely believing it would. So I actually sort of fell down as a developer with that customer a little bit when I should have been building out the other features and saying that one's sort of future implementation. I focused in on how do I get that working. And come to find out, it worked fine, on the Mac or the Windows side if you published as a desktop app. But once you cross over to the iOS side, the library wasn't available at that point. So I think either in version 8 or version 9, they released that library, and now that functionality is there. But it was long ago and far away. It was probably over 4 or 5 years ago. So that customer has gotten frustrated with LiveCode, moved on to something else, and moved on to another vendor rather than me in the meantime. So I've sort of gotten burned by that. So now as we're going through the projects, I'm trying to be more meticulous about determining, well, what works on which part of the platform and what do I have to research to get things working. And so one of the things I mentioned is that, between Martin, myself, and David Brule, we sort of have these 3 initial projects working. And David and myself are both working on what I've referred to as learning record providers, something that will send a statement to an LRS, with the idea being that we could use those as platforms to build upon later on. And then Martin had this existing project that he was working on with another standard called LTI. And he just said, well, let's take a look at this and see if it's valuable. So he's published it out there for us to sort of look at. But those are the 3 that I've mentioned that are sort of underway. So welcome, Peter. How are things with you?
Good, thanks. Um, um, all right, still lurking in the sides here, seeing what's going on.
I understand. I have to be frank. With Peter, I need to explain Kevin a little bit. Kevin joined as part of the xAPI cohort. Peter actually came on board a little earlier when I mentioned this project to some of the LiveCode groups.
Yeah.
So Peter's been in and out of the meetings, and it may be challenging, but from the xAPI cohort perspective, this week is really like the initial week for teams to start being productive and working in on what the project is going to be. So we're sort of on track with the cohort side of things, but it may seem sort of that we've been spinning our wheels a bit. But we've had new people come in almost each meeting, and we've had people come and go. So there's challenges in scheduling, and that's sort of what I'm working through. I'm trying to get us into this block, ideally, as a weekly block of time that people can put on their calendar and schedule around, rather than us putting out a meeting notice the day before and finding people have conflicts. It's just a cycle. If I'm in a mode where I'm asking people for a week of what their schedule looks like, it's almost too late to try and schedule anything common. So now we want to get into mode where, can you block this time frame on your calendar? It doesn't need to be 2 hours, but maybe 3 to 4 is our prime time, and I'm thinking we could keep 4 to 5, but sort of make that as a common work time. And people who can stick around from 4 to 5 are welcome to, but the idea is to try and get the majority of the people into the 3 to 4 block of time.
This is a good time for me.
Okay, I'm glad to hear that. How's that work for you, Kevin?
Yeah, this works well for me.
Okay,
definitely.
We did
get a good day. Wednesday's a good day.
Yeah, we did get a couple more people look at the. Excuse me, I just did something I didn't want to do. I've got 2 computers in front of me. I'm recording one meeting and talking in another. So, suppose if I need to share this, I need to share this. So I think you've all seen it, but let me go ahead and share my screen. I don't have any need to share sound, so I'm not going to do that. So this is what I'm talking about with the when to meet. And it looks like, yeah, Peter, actually I don't see you in here. Kevin, am I missing that? So I'll go ahead and, can I stick it in the chat? Yes, it's just hidden. So it's hard to see the chat while you're sharing, but it's out there. So if you want to take a look at this, Kevin, basically you're in an environment on this web page where you're seeing everybody's shared time if you mouse over. And then what it wants you to do is just create a sign-in and like a throwaway password for this URL. And when you sign in, it gives you a page of information. I don't know why mine's not filled in. That's sort of confusing me. But it gives you one that you can draw on that adds to what's over there on the right. And basically where we're at is we see the darkest is the common times. And then you see when I mouse over, the people who are unavailable at those times sort of show up on the left. The biggest complaint I have about this is I can't see anybody's email. And then the second complaint is when I try and use it on a tablet, I can't really capture this very well. If I mouse over here, or even on the desktop, if I mouse over here and then try and do a screen grab to capture who's available, it goes away as soon as I mouse out. So the user interface is sort of challenging, but the idea of it as a free tool is valuable in the sense that it gives us sort of a quick and dirty way to see. And again, I'm not sure why it's not seeing this. The only thing I think of is I signed into a different URL or with a different password, but it thinks I'm somebody else this time. Al, can you get it? Yeah. Okay. I've got somebody at the door behind me, so I'm just... So Kevin, if you could you take a look at that and sort of add in your availability? Yeah, go ahead. You can do it now.
Yeah, Brian, my login to that is doing the same thing. It's not showing the.
It's not showing your data?
Not showing the pink field there.
Okay. Kevin, that gives me a little concern. It might be having an issue on that website, but I'd say go ahead and try it. You're just creating a password and store it in the browser so you can get back onto that URL. And then you'd be able to update this if you need to. But the idea is, you know, this time around we're trying to capture blocks of time for regular meeting time, and this is sort of what I was talking about a minute ago, was if we could, you know, we're trying to see where the darkest is, and that looks like Wednesday from 3 to 5. But we actually blocked from 3 to 6 for today, just based on there being some people that were available, and then it changes. You can see it cycles through. So have either of you...
I got in. I just logged in.
Okay, good. Have either of you just sort of drag over the pink and it'll turn green? But,
okay.
You know, the typical mode is to switch back and forth between your calendar or try and arrange it so you can see both of them on your screen. Even though I blocked this out with dates on it, again, the concept here is we're after like a 2-hour block that would be acceptable as a regular meeting time. So even though you may have a conflict today or next week, I should say, because obviously you don't have a conflict today, we'd like to see if we can set up a regular meeting time.
Let's see.
It's sort of odd that URL is behaving that way. So we have a, excuse me a minute. Hey guys, I'm in a live meeting. Please don't ring it again. We have a 3-year-old neighbor that likes to come over and walk our dog, so he's ringing the doorbell repeatedly until the dog comes out. The things that happen during live meetings. And then part of the challenge has been, you know, even people say they're available. You know, you can see there's a couple folks that are missing. Andrew and Martin have both said they were available at this time, but something came up. So here we are. I might just hop over to Slack. Type in at channel. So are both of you familiar with Slack?
A little bit.
A little bit. Peter? Would it help if I go over this interface a little bit?
Yeah, sure.
So obviously what I'm doing right now is writing a message, and by putting the @ sign in front of somebody, I can call somebody out by name. So I could put in, I've got a space there, @Izzy. And I typed it wrong. So based on what you type, if I type Izzy, it reduces the list down. And Izzy Laura is part of our group. So if I add him in, it will specifically ask for him. @channel is sort of a shortcut. Anybody that's already subscribed to our channel, Team xAPI-in-LiveCode, will get a prompt saying there's a new message. And I don't know if it's any more detailed than that. Ideally, it would actually send them the message, but a lot of these tools are set up to where it funnels traffic from email back into the tool. So they might just get either a Slack notification on their phone or an email that, hey, you got a new message. So part of the challenge is figuring out how each of the tools work. And then over here on the left, you can see they have a long list of channels. That's what's identified here. Up above, we have threads, all direct messages, drafts, mentions, reactions, saved items, and then starred. So I have a star in the Spring Team Unity 3D sandbox so I can get back to it. But then these channels are all the channels that the xAPI cohort has set up. And the things that start with discuss are actually ongoing discussions throughout each cohort. So those don't expire, they don't get removed. They'll be there cohort after cohort or semester after semester, if you will. The main, the request, GitHub, team access, resources, and social are also ongoing, but these are more primary channels. Main is literally where most everything that Torrance Learning publishes about the cohort shows up there. It's where most of their team interacts with the cohort. So it's not necessarily high traffic, but it's high importance. Request GitHub team access is a channel specific to requesting that access. Once you get in to Slack, you actually need to put a note in here and say you need access to the GitHub. And then resources are things where they publish like vendors that are making tools available. So there's recording conversations. I'm just scrolling through this to see if there's an example. So the recording from the web session is here. Recording from the other web session is here. And then I thought we had one for vendors. Maybe I'm misspeaking here. And then social is a channel for us to introduce ourselves as we come into the cohort. So people sort of put detail about their background in there if you want to find out who you're talking to and what their experience is. You can read through some of that. And then these that start with team are current for this cohort. So if it's pound team adaptive learning, and then we are pound team xAPI-in-LiveCode, you can see that these are the current teams for spring 2021, and they sort of leave them with just pound team. After the cohort ends, so next cohort, they will ask me as the leader of this team if we're going to be active next cohort, and if not, they're going to put a message in front of it like Z21 spring showing that it's archived from a certain time frame. So I've subscribed to these other channels and they have been archived, but they're still available to us. So for example, in spring of 20, I was involved in the Captivate JavaScript library channel and team. And part of this was an effort by, I'm blanking on his name, another Brian, I see, oh, there it is, Brian Floyd, set up a library for people to use within Captivate files to publish xAPI out of them. So he's made that library available on GitHub. And we had, quite a bit of testing that we did working with him as he was developing it. But that was, like I said, from spring of 20. So the ones that start with Z and have the year on there are in a sense archived, but still available because there's resources in them. They will have conversations that you may want to go look at. And that's part of why I have the Unity one up here with a star on it, so I can go back in and find it. I have a curiosity about getting some Unity projects up and running, but it hasn't been a priority, so it just remains starred for now. The other thing to know is when you get in here, there's not a lot of channels, so you actually want to, if I remember right, you want to click on channels, which just hides them. Let me try control click, option click. Sorry, I'm blanking my mind because I can browse, there it is, browse the channels or create a new channel. So the challenge is the interface says plus, but I actually want to browse available channels. And this, you can see this brings over a list of the ones that are available in there. And of course I can search by putting something specific in. And you can see all of them that have been made available. And the pages, you know, there's 4 pages and I've only scrolled through 1. So the idea is this list over here is what I am actively monitoring, if I can put it that way. Anytime someone posts in one of these channels, it'll have a marker on it and it'll tell me that there's a new message. But I have to actually go over here and subscribe to it. Now, some of the things they were doing when we could do live face-to-face things was these with a meetup in front of it in a city. So the idea was if you were interested in meeting other xAPI practitioners in your area, you could go in and sign up for those. So I don't think I'm signed up for on the job. So let me show you how that works. I hit join over here. Actually, if I click on the name of it, I can view the channel without joining. So I can actually scroll through and see who's involved, what they've published, what information's available just by viewing. And by joining, it'll mean that the people running the channel are notified that I'm now part of it. It will also show it up over here with on the job perk. Actually, it looks like I have it available to me, but I hadn't joined it yet. So you can see the difference. It's in my list as active for this cohort, but I haven't physically joined it. So if you scroll all the way up to the top, when you create one of these channels, it's actually asked you to describe what your group or what your team is doing, what the channel is going to be used for. And then it tells you who created it and when. And then the first few postings are usually by the creator. And then you see some other people have joined and started conversing. We've talked about Doodle. But you see, you know, here's a note that Will joined and 5 others joined. So if you, I think if I click on this, there we go. If I go more actions, nope. Huh, okay. Maybe it's because I'm not a member of it. Yep, it's because I'm not a member. Okay. So I'm going to jump down to xAPI-in-LiveCode. Looks like Izzy's coming in the door. And the reason I did that is I wanted to show you there's also an option in here to reply in the thread. So because I'm part of this, part of our team channel, I can reply to Joan's message specifically by looking for this bubble.
Oh, okay.
So I can shut down the other computer there. So, Izzy, we're just going through Slack a little bit. Hopefully you're able to get in.
Yeah, no, that's great.
It looked like you were in, what was it, team? What was the last one you had? I thought I saw Izzy's name.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah, on the job perk, I think it is.
On the job perk, and now I lost it.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, I don't know where it is. Let's see. What is the actual name?
Let me see if this user interface is doing what I think it's doing when I'm browsing.
It's still there. Yeah.
Is it PERC?
The way to do it is just do team dash on the job. It should come up from that.
Okay. So
Yeah,
what I
that's
did
it.
though was I clicked here. I think it's adding it to the list in case I join. But when I navigate out of it, unless I'm missing
Because
something,
you have to no, because you have to actually join the
yeah,
channel
it's unless I'm missing
in order
something, it
for it to
removes
show.
it.
Yeah, because you have to actually join the channel in
Yeah.
order for it to stay there. That's the
Okay.
only
Oh,
thing.
So yeah, it's a little confusing on the interface because I found it there and then it's gone.
Yeah.
So much for my demo. I'm exploring as I describe.
That's okay. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
hey, Slack is a beast, so
Yeah.
it takes a little bit of time to kind of get used to all its little idiosyncrasies.
So we talked through this a little bit. I don't know why, but I'm not coming up with my availability now. It looks like there might be a glitch in the system.
Oh, is it possible that you filled it out?
It's possible, but I don't think I did. I used the same password each time just
Oh,
to avoid
weird.
this.
No, but I guess I was just thinking if maybe you filled it out without putting in a password.
No, I don't think so.
No, because you should have still shown up.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's weird.
I know you did it because when I filled it out, I think I was like the first one I saw you had availability
No, I
there.
filled
So.
it out. My name's over there, but the only thing I can think of is it's on my iPad. I may have filled it out with a different name, or maybe I spelled it different. I don't know. Maybe I used a different password on the iPad and it's not showing up the same here. Actually, look at that. It's B Duck versus Brian Duck. So that might explain something. Yeah.
Try doing it with capital letters.
Wrong password.
Yeah, capital B, capital D. I think that's the way it was showing up.
Yeah, see.
No?
It looks
Okay.
like my passwords are out of sync. Sorry, I'm getting warm. But we don't need to resolve that now. I just sort of prompted Peter and Kevin to take a look at that. So how are things for Izzy?
Good. They're good. I did see your message in Slack around updates. So I don't know. I guess what are sort of the next steps? Is the idea that those 3 projects that are underway are happening simultaneously? Are they happening sequentially? Like, what's the...
Well, they're somewhat happening simultaneously. One of the challenges is I mean, we've seen an update from Martin, and you've seen an update from me in the recordings, but the third person that's running things, David Boville, is actually located in London, UK, and we've had a challenge getting him connected in with the timing of some of the meetings.
Yeah.
If I recall correctly, this meeting it would be ending at past midnight. It may have started nearly midnight for him. So that's part of the challenge. If we don't start earlier in the morning, it's more of a challenge for him to get on board.
Yeah, of course. I work with people in the UK also, and yes, it's for that reason that we usually schedule our team meetings early in the day on the East Coast. I'm on the East Coast, so yeah, we schedule those much earlier in the day for our UK colleagues. That being said, if they are earlier in the day, I won't be able to attend because I generally have most of my client calls and my internal company meetings during that morning block of time.
Okay.
Sorry,
I got to turn on fan.
No, that's okay. Yeah, but I'm happy to kind of work, figure out what something that can work.
Well, that's part of what I'm up to is trying to find a time that works for a standing meeting for most people. But the other option is to see if Martin and David can sort of join in and tag team to one standing meeting, or if we actually need to, have each project have a meeting and let people sort of come and go and do updates for each of them. So I don't really think we're at a point where we need, each meeting separate, but the time zone thing may make that a better option than not.
Right. So maybe the best way is, specifically for David's kind of portion, whomever is going to work on that, maybe just kind of work with David to kind of figure out a good time that works, and then David and Martin can have a meeting with you, Brian, to like give updates on what their team has worked on. Maybe that makes the most sense.
Yep.
Because I mean, it's just a beast to try to figure out scheduling between like so many different people.
No, it's good thinking, though. I appreciate that. And then the other challenge, of course, is I'm on a free Zoom, so I just got a note that we're under 10 minutes. What I did was I scheduled the Zoom meetings today, one after another, with the same meeting ID, and I'm told that if they're back to back, we should be able to log out and log in with the same password.
Okay.
But in case that becomes a challenge, I'm going to go into the 3:30 session and copy the invitation into our chat. And if I understand correctly, everything but the passcode, well, the URL to join obviously has the passcode embedded in it, so it's also different, but everything but the passcode is now different. And then I probably should just throw that in Slack, because people were looking to join either at 3:30 or 4.
Yeah.
Oh, Peter, thanks for signing in there.
By the way, I'm just curious. What am I trying to ask? Is Zoom sort of the best platform? I guess just because of this time limitation.
I'm willing to try others, but what I've tried is Google Hangouts has limitations if you're not on a Gmail address. So
right.
Something like WebEx or something like Teams, I think both require E-class accounts, enterprise level accounts.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm sort of challenged, running this with the no budget situation.
Yeah, no. I just say specifically because of like the Google Meet one. I've used it before with my free Gmail account, and it works fine. The only problem, like you said, is that everyone has to have a Gmail account that's logging in.
Yeah, I've tried using that with another group that I manage, and it worked great if you had Gmail, but the non-Gmail people were literally locked out. They just could not find a way in. And it sent it to them, it invited them, it told them they were welcome, everything looked like it was going to work up until the day of the meeting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was a bit of a challenge.
But Gmail's pretty easy to get.
Yeah.
Right. It's
I
free.
mean,
it's like, yeah.
It's
Like,
like you can have as many accounts as you want. So make a LiveCode Gmail account.
I mean, the other option is I could also just stream it out via YouTube, but then you don't have the feedback. You don't have the interaction.
oh yeah.
So,
Oh yeah. No,
so
definitely.
that's not helpful.
I mean, yeah. The funny thing is that we use Google Meet for my job, but when I had to work with a client and like talk to them directly, I used a free Zoom one because I know that Zoom has the best compatibility overall,
Yeah.
and people can just join with whatever they might have, whatever system, whatever account, whatever anything. So I know it's sort of a catch-22 there. Anyway.
The other part of the puzzle is I've talked a bit early on with some of the other members. David is one, and then Mark, I want to say Siskin, joined us from Carnegie Mellon, and both of them offered their commercial Zoom accounts, but then when they have conflicts, they're likely using that, so they can't even set up the meeting and host it when they can't be in it. So
Yeah.
it's continued to be an issue.
Well, you can ask Brian. You can ask people if they are willing to do that.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. Okay. Well, I guess
you're right, Peter. I guess I haven't really followed up with that after those early meetings. Go ahead, Izzy. What were you saying?
No. I mean, it's going to be. We only have 4 minutes left.
Yeah.
I guess what is sort of the next step, in terms of this meeting? Like, what? I guess what are the next sort of things that we wanted to discuss or get accomplished?
What I've got in this very crowded, colorful screen is this is the agenda I sort of put through, and we talked a bit about the regular meeting schedule. I reviewed when to meet and asked people to update it, but as new people come in, we sort of need to revisit that.
Sure.
We should also review the goals. So what we've talked about already as a team is building an initial project. We actually have 2 flavors of it in process as a learning record provider. So this would be sort of a baseline LiveCode project that is able to send a statement and receive a response back from an LRS, and that would serve as a baseline LiveCode project for other projects. And the idea is we'll get that up and running fairly quickly. We're thinking first half of the cohort. And then the next step is to use that learning record provider and add in course content. So one of the suggestions that David had was that we ask people coming in from the cohort who may not be experienced live coders to sort of research and gather some slides or some other videos, some other materials, and help us by building content or gathering content that we can then place into a LiveCode project and have it published as a standalone learning application, with the idea being as they go through either the video or the other content that it's sending and receiving statements. It's capturing I shouldn't say capturing, but really logging their knowledge into an LRS as they complete different tasks. And the idea being that those then become sort of showpieces at the end, with there actually being content that the learner is using and it actually working by sending data out to the LRS.
Gotcha.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
And then the
Sure.
Item 3 is the idea of providing an introduction to LiveCode session. Both Martin and David has sort of offered to do this. And I would say we did a very quick overview in one of the earlier videos, but it was just sort of, here's what it looks like. the focus of this would be for non-live coders to learn the layout of the tools, understand what the basic tool set is, the modes for creating and editing, or I should say browsing and editing a stack, and then the structure. What does that stack structure look like? So some of that would help people get up and running if they wanted to understand LiveCode a little better. And then at this point, I would ask, are there additional goals that we should be capturing for the team? Is what I've mentioned capture what everybody's expectations are? So,
well, on that note, we have less than a minute, so I just want to make sure you don't get cut off.
thank you for mentioning that. If you haven't already, go out and grab the URL from the chat. You may want to save the chat. I think we all have that available to us. If not, it's just available to me as a host.
It's in the, you put it in the Slack channel, so
Yes.
we're good.
Oh, good. Okay. So at this point, let's go ahead and check out and check back into the new meeting.
Got it.
Is everybody able to do that? We'll see you shortly.
Hey, nice, it worked.
Yep.
Yeah.
Is everybody able to get in with the new URL? Is your...
Yeah, there were actually no problems with that, and it was the same. It was the same one. So,
Yep.
okay.
Yeah, it's an exercise, but I think the other part of it is if somebody gets out of sync with us and we are not updating the Slack channel, it's easy for somebody who's late to the party to be locked out. So, Helen's
Yeah, but the
able to
fact that
join.
it's the same URL means that you actually don't even have to post it.
Yeah,
You just do it once, and that's it.
I wasn't sure about that. Helen, are you hearing us?
Yes, hello. I'm sorry I was running a little late. How are you doing today?
I think we're doing good. You're not the only one, so welcome.
Thank you.
Okay. So we just reviewed the objectives. I think you were on board for an earlier meeting when we talked about it.
Yes.
So let me just go back through and sort of bullet the 3 points. And then I'm going to ask everybody if they have other objectives we should add. So the idea is we're going to build a learning record provider as a baseline. Then we want to have people take that baseline and add in some course content to build some sample learning applications. And then item 3 that I think we've added since we had this conversation was that Martin and David have both offered to provide an introduction to LiveCode session, possibly multiple sessions. So at this point, let me ask, actually I'm going to start at the bottom. Oh, I need to stop share so I can see everybody. Kevin, can I start with you? Do you have any other goals we should be considering or adding? Any personal goals you want to get out of the project? Are you muted?
How is the xAPI playing into that? How's the xAPI playing into that? Is that in learning records?
Yes. So a learning record provider is sending xAPI statements. So the baseline will be able to send statements. And then the idea is take the baseline and the second half of the cohort and add content in it to make it an actual course, or probably smaller as a lesson or topic.
Okay.
But the idea is that that topic would have content in it, so somebody's
Right.
actually experiencing it as a learner, and to wire it in so it's sending statements as they go through and work through the topic. It could be as as simple as, I don't want to minimize it, but as simple as
Right.
making it a series of slides that they go through,
Right.
or as complicated as here's a video, and then tracking. Do they pause the video? Do they rewind? Do they fast forward? Those type of interactions.
And the framework would be in LiveCode.
Yes. Yes. The idea of the baseline is that it's a LiveCode project that others can use. So both the projects that David and I were planning on putting them up in GitHub so others can download and use them. And then the content at the end, ideally those content projects would also be published into GitHub so others can see how it was done, how the interaction was accomplished.
It sounds good. Like
You like?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, I like it. I mean, it sounds like a good thing to do.
Okay. Peter, do you have any comments? Do you have any other goals?
No, that sounds like a good plan.
Okay.
Yeah.
Izzy, how about you?
Yeah, I would say that yeah, the goals sound good to me. Just in terms of order of operations, I don't know what you guys think, but I might think about potentially doing some of those live code training sessions after the initial project is done.
Right.
As a way to sort of, right,
of,
exactly. So
okay.
as a way of saying, here's what we built and here's how we built it. So that way it's not just, here's all these random things that you can do and here's how you can use all these random things, but here's how we use them to build this specific thing instead. I think that's a lot more useful, and you get a lot more out of understanding how each of the components works. You understand also the back-end code that you're putting in there, all that.
So I'm thinking I should also say, I've added to my notes to have those sessions after the baseline is complete, and we should also show examples of how to publish content in LiveCode. So in a sense, we'd already be working through an example of one of the course content pieces, rather than just describing what the baseline looks like. We'd actually want to say, okay, now to add a card in, we're going to do this. To add some interactivity to this card, we can capture it off a button, we can capture it off a mouse click, and sort of show examples of how to
Precisely.
do this. Okay.
And if you actually record that also, you could store that also inside of the GitHub along with the LiveCode projects. So that way, if anyone else wants to look at it later on, they could look at it just to understand what you guys did.
Right.
So you're serving multiple purposes with that walkthrough.
Of course. So provide recording. Yep. And just as a sort of common reminder, I am recording this session, and that is sort of our MO, our modus of operation, is that we would publish the recording so people who aren't, able to join live can catch up. That's just part of how we interact with the cohort. But I appreciate Izzy sort of elaborating that. Helen, did we get to you? Do you have any other goals or elaborations on what we've talked about?
So because I'm really in a learning mode, the only thing a couple of things, if we do create a video, I can help create the use case of what actions we'd like to measure. Let's say there's information about halfway through and we want to create or generate an API statement that says the learner got to this point, so they were able to see, like view important information or specific information. In the video that you upload to GitHub, I'll be glad to annotate that, highlight it, put some features when we get to that point.
Okay.
But all the things that you're talking about, they're all meeting my objectives. I wish I could contribute more.
You're doing fine.
I put together a block diagram, Brian, and I posted that in your email in Slack.
Okay.
Because just to put some visuals together, eventually you'll be presenting this, or the team will. And if I can help out with that, I'll be glad to do that too.
Yep. Oops. So I'm going to go ahead and share and take a look at it, if you don't mind.
Oh, wonderful. And if it's something that you cannot use, don't worry about it, because it's just a way for me to capture notes.
Oh, messages. Okay. No, I appreciate you doing these things. So where's Helen? There's Helen.
So I put it in your, yes, to you.
Yep.
That functional block diagram, it's a PowerPoint that just shows the live code visually creating that LRP.
Okay.
And incorporating the profiles, the CMI5 profile and the video profile.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't see this latest one. I apologize.
Oh, no, that's all right.
Oh, that is not what I wanted to do. Sorry, Zoom is sort of interfering with my mouse at this point. I'm pretty sure that's the right folder.
And then there's just a list of if each person wants to perform something or add to something, I just put a sample collaboration that could be used.
Yeah, I'm really having trouble with these dynamic user interfaces that overlap things over what I'm doing and keep me from doing what I want to do. This is challenging. But thank you, Helen. It's really appreciated you doing these. So I haven't seen the collaboration plan either. So pull that one down. I did see your earlier thing. Okay. And then I think you posted a couple things in the channel, if I remember right.
Yeah, there were just notes again from team meetings, from your videos.
Right.
That included some links. Because everybody was sharing links to different resources. They were so helpful.
So what I'm finding with these attachments is if you click the cloud to download, I've already downloaded it. So instead of downloading again, it's saying show in Finder, which is sort of helpful in that it also tells me it's been saved and where it is. So just an example, this opens up to what Helen published for us.
And I didn't do this one.
Oh, okay. My apologies.
No, doesn't this look
Was
great?
this Martin?
I think Martin did this.
Okay. Yeah, this was Martin. And he's actually published some changes to this LC, LMS, LTI that I need to go out into GitHub and resolve. And then someone else I know has published this tutorial. So I want to look at that and see if that's helpful for the team. And that was Martin. My apologies. Yours are further up here, I think. There we go.
I think there were two of them because you had a part 1 intro meeting and a part 2.
I think it'll open that. Let me change my screen. Again, it's in the Finder already, so.
So that functional diagram up in the top, that was the one that just showed the relationship between the LiveCode, CMI, and video.
Okay.
That was in that top of that list that you had.
Yeah, so part of reviewing this is it might be helpful for other people watching, so I thought I'd show where they're at and capture that in the video. I appreciate you doing this. This is helpful to have this detail. And then the other document.
Yeah, the one at the top there, the functional diagram.
I think you're talking about here. There we
Yes.
go. Oh, good. Minimize. Nicely done.
Thank you. Well, that was all information shared during your meetings.
Yeah. Okay, so does that mean it's okay? PowerPoint sort of has some strange behavior sometimes. And then okay. So thank you, Helen. We appreciate that.
You're welcome.
I'm going to jump back to my notes. So we talked a bit about the projects that are underway. I'm just sort of continuing down the agenda here. The other thing that we wanted to talk through a little bit is I just want to check. It's 5 after 5. I want to make sure there's nobody out in the participants area waiting to get in. Good. So the LiveCode LRP that I'm working on is sort of a repackage of the ADL xAPI Lab statement building web page. It's also a WE page. And then Martin is working on a project, LiveCode with Lavure. I think that extra E is silent. And Lavure Framework has a detail page up here on the LiveCode site. I don't want to overwhelm you with this, but I just want to sort of show the page, so if somebody wants to refer to it, they can find this. So Lavure is, let me just put it succinctly, it's a very advanced framework for using LiveCode, I would say, with multiple developers. So Martin has his reasons for using that, and his experience for using that is because he's developing apps that are available for sale. So he's published his project using this Lavure framework. For the most part, the project I'm working on is much more basic, meaning it's not using this framework. It's using the object-oriented approach within LiveCode. By that I mean there's a background for the whole stack. There's cards. There can be multiple cards inside of the stack. And then there can be objects on each card, a field, a button, and each of those objects, the stacks, the cards, the fields, and the buttons, each of them can have a script assigned to that. And it tends to be, from my perspective, a little clearer in understanding the messaging framework and understanding how to get started with LiveCode. So that's why I've sort of retained that approach. And then I'm not sure where David is coming in. He didn't comment that he's using Lavure, but he has some very advanced programming skills. So my instinct is that his code is going to be a little more advanced than others would be, and it may definitely be more advanced than mine. But I still think when we're talking about the basic functionality of opening a LiveCode stack and then sending the xAPI statement, we'll all be able to see the techniques that were used for doing that. So each of these projects is sort of going to have a different perspective on it, and I think that's valuable for the group overall. So maybe, I don't know if I say phase 1 or part 1 projects. At least another half an hour. Do you want to interrupt and come start? Okay. Okay. So the other things I have noted under here are the best ways to stay connected. There are some people that are on the email list and on the use LiveCode list. And so I'm prompting them to join the xAPI cohort.com, sign up for Slack, and then join our team. And that was sort of the purpose of going through Slack, because just getting into Slack gets you access to main and a few of these other channels. You actually have to search out for Team xAPI and LiveCode and join that. That's what I showed you over here by clicking the plus, searching for the channel within the list, Team xAPI, and once you do that, you can then click join, which will show up like this. Now, since I'm a member, it's prompting me with a button to leave, but if you're not a member, it's going to prompt you to join. The other way to stay involved is a direct email to me, bdoc@mac.com, and I'll keep you on our email list. If you're in the Slack, I'd sort of prefer that, but I am keeping a list of LiveCode emails that have asked to be kept up to date. But again, I'm trying to prompt people to be in the LiveCode, and then the use LiveCode list. The messages may be delayed for digest subscribers, and I believe most people are subscribed to it as a once-a-day digest, which, from my perspective, comes out just at noon Eastern time. I don't know if it's, bracketed around the world or if it's coming out for everybody at the same time. But I've sort of used the timing to know that if I get an email out before noon, I can get it to the list. But the challenge is any responses, the closer I get to sending something at noon, any responses are going to be held till the next day. So I was able to send a message yesterday to sort of warn people that the meeting was coming today. And that was sort of the purpose of that, is to let people know. And then I've got some notes here from what we talked about today. We need to ask David to set timing for working meetings in UK time. And then I think we need to have a meeting between David, Martin, and myself to have some updates prior to our weekly meeting if they're not able to attend, or so we can provide updates for all 3 of the projects. So any questions or concerns?
No, it looks great.
So, okay, so in terms of next steps, I know that you mentioned stuff for you, like to figure out, scheduling and meetings with those guys, but is there anything else for the rest of us to sort of get started on?
Well, I would ask if you are, and I think you have personally said you are, if you're interested in getting your LiveCode environment set up, one of the things to do would be to download either the, I think preferably the open source version from livecode.org.
Okay.
The other possibility is to download one of the other flavors of it. But my guess is that is just a 30-day trial, and it will revert to the open source version if you use it past 30 days. We don't really have a in with LiveCode at this point to allow us some kind of elongated trial based on the cohort. And one of the earlier discussions, we were looking at Grassblade as an LRS. And Grassblade was created by one of the people that helped build the xAPI profile for video. So it is a very video-friendly platform. But their trial isn't really set up like it's 30 days or not. They're set up to give you, I think they have a $5.99 a month tier as a starting point. They don't really have a free trial. And when I brought this up with Torrance Learning, they weren't really willing to reach out to that vendor and ask them to step in. So unless we reach out to that vendor, I don't really think that's going to happen. That was primarily David's interest, was to reach out to them because he saw some value in that platform. So that's sort of where we're at with that. But I would say individually, if you want to be up and running with LiveCode, go ahead and download the livecode.org version. Once you get that installed, launching the application opens up a menu bar that has a link to tutorials. And the tutorials, there's 2 flavors. One of them being an on-screen tutorial that prompts you through things. And I'm trying to remember, was it Helen? Or maybe it wasn't Helen that said she had trouble with that.
I think it was Joan Davis.
Joan, yes. My apologies, Helen. So Joan said last week that she had troubles with that flavor of the tutorial. So I recommended she go in and open up the application and just launch the tutorial, the text-based tutorials from the screen.
Okay.
And I have it open, so let me see if I can show you what I'm talking about.
Okay.
I'm just going to hit share again. On again, off again. And then... So this is the menu bar. It's sort of low on my screen. You can see it opens up a page for sample stacks, tutorials, resources, and the dictionary. So the key things you want to look at are the tutorials, which is a page on livecode.com.
Okay.
And typically we would say get up and running or getting started.
Okay.
And then there's LiveCode lessons as well. I wouldn't get into the server tasks. We're not using it in server mode. Izzy, I don't think you were part of the conversation when we were talking about mobile, but mobile is sort of a platform-specific instance at this point. So it's really a how-to step-by-step tasks. You might also want to look at the sample scripts, but I would recommend go into this step-by-step tasks. And you can see down the left well, actually, it's down the middle here. They have individual tips. How to use
Perfect.
date and time. How do I attach a file? So there's a number of things to get started with.
Okay.
Working with
Okay.
text, working with files.
Great.
So you
Okay.
can, I mean, you can see there's a great deal of things. And then if you want to get into the advanced programming, how to work with arrays. For the most part, we are working with arrays once we get into JSON, so that is valuable. And then
Yeah.
the LiveCode and databases, I don't think will really be jumping in that deep into databases.
Okay.
Because we're sending something to an LRS. But the user interface, I'm sort of surprised is this far down on the screen. This is actually a good place to start.
Right, I would
by
think
using
so.
The buttons
That would
and
be
rollovers.
Yeah, I mean, it's like the most obvious thing that you're dragging onto the interface are
Yes.
buttons and other things. But yeah, anyway, makes sense.
Playing
Got it.
sounds, moving between cards in a stack.
Okay. Okay, great. So thank you for walking through that.
Well, not a
I will
problem.
check that out. And then as far as an LRS is concerned, you don't have. Do you have one that you're going to use?
I have accounts both with SquirmCloud and Veracity. I'm certainly willing to use Watershed if you want to do something there.
Oh, I mean, I just didn't know if, I guess because between the sort of 3 different projects going on, it might make sense just to settle on one, to either create 3 different accounts in a single LRS or just I guess just settle on one, so that way, you're all sort of developing using the same, let's say the same API or whatever.
Right. Let's see. So again, we're getting the running out of time notice. We've got 10 minutes. But
Sure, I've got to stop anyway in those 10 minutes. But
I'm just pulling up this page. This is one of the project pages, and it talks through about SquirmCloud. So this data is being sent to SquirmCloud, but like I said, I should talk with David and with Martin about centralizing the statements, getting sent to the same place, and seeing that as something to do. So let me flip over to my to-dos list.
Yeah, I mean, if you do decide to go with Watershed, I did post a message in the in like that demos and vendor offers channel that basically just says all you got to do is create an account on Essentials, for Watershed Essentials, and you send an email to, what is it, info at watershedlrs.com.
So I've jumped
Yep,
over
right
into
there.
Slack.
Yep, perfect, right there. If you scroll up a little to my message, right there, where your mouse is, yep, it tells you exactly what to do. So
Awesome.
you can sign up there and send an email out, and they'll give you that demo for the length of the cohort.
Yep. I appreciate the prompting. Earlier I was thinking it was in resources, but it's actually up here in demos and vendor offers. So if people want to look for this, we can go ahead and set something up and get started.
Yeah, and that's really for any of you. I mean, not just you, Brian, but
Right.
really, anyone can request that. So if you want to sort of play around in your own LRS just to try something out, you're free to do that.
Okay, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
I would say, unless there's any other comments, do we have any final closing comments on the way out the door? Let me just do a round robin. Helen, do you have anything to add or anything that we've missed?
No, thank you. I always learn a lot. Just greatly appreciate the discussion. Thank you.
Okay. Kevin?
No, it's been good. I picked up a lot.
Okay, we appreciate it. How about Peter?
Just to remind you, you might want to check into the Google Hangouts with the other people if that might be a better way of doing this.
Okay.
Yeah. Otherwise, thank you. This is good.
Yeah, good.
Very good.
Izzy, do you have any final?
No, it was good catching up. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Sounds like we'll see you all next time.
All right.
Okey-doke.
Bye.
Yep.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks, everybody.
Bye.